captured, dragged deep into the desert to a place no one questioned and no one escaped. A young woman stood there, terrified, broken, unsure if she was saved or chosen for something far darker. And then she spoke. But what she said didn't just explain her story. It exposed something no one in Salahuddin Ayyubi's court was ready to hear. Now think about this. Was she telling the truth? Or was something far more dangerous hiding behind her words? Tell me what you think in the comments. I'm really curious to hear your take. And if you enjoy powerful Islamic history like this, like, share, and subscribe to Islamic Conquest. Inside a quiet chamber far from the noise of the city, Salahuddin Ayyubi stood surrounded by his most trusted men. The air felt heavy, as if something unseen had entered the room with them. Commanders, scholars, and advisors sat in silence, waiting, because what had just happened made no sense. A young woman had been brought in, rescued from men who were now dead. Soldiers had sworn they found her being taken deep into the desert. And yet, her condition, her silence, her presence, none of it matched a simple rescue. She stood before them, weak and exhausted. Dust still clung to her clothes. Her face carried fear, but also something else, something difficult to explain. Salahuddin observed her closely. He was not a man who rushed to judgment. He had seen deception before on battlefields, in courts, even among allies. And something within him now refused to accept the situation at face value. "Let her speak," he said calmly. His voice carried authority, but also restraint. The woman looked up, her eyes uncertain. For a brief moment, it seemed as if she didn't even recognize where she was, as if her mind was still somewhere far away, trapped in whatever she had just escaped. Then slowly, she began. Her voice trembled at first. She spoke of being taken, of hands pulling her away, of being forced onto a horse, of riding endlessly through the desert. She described fear, exhaustion, confusion. The men listened carefully. This part made sense, because what came next did not fit the story they expected. She spoke of reaching a place, not a camp, not a village, something else, a place she could not fully describe. It was light, she said slowly, a strange light, not like fire. Some of the men exchanged glances. Others leaned forward, because now curiosity had replaced certainty. She continued. I heard voices, many voices, but I could not understand them. Her breathing grew uneven. Salahuddin watched her carefully, because now, this was no longer just testimony. This was something deeper. What kind of place was it? He asked. His tone remained calm, but his question was precise. The woman hesitated, as if searching for words that refused to come. I don't know, she whispered. It felt different. That answer unsettled the room. One of the advisors stepped forward slightly. Well, my Sultan, she has suffered greatly. This could be confusion. But Salahuddin raised his hand gently, not in dismissal, but in control. No, he said quietly, to let her continue. Because something told him this was not confusion. This was a fragment of something hidden. And if they stopped now, they would lose it. The woman took a breath, then continued. They took me inside, she said. There were people, men, women. I could hear them, but I could not see clearly. Her words slowed as if each memory carried. There was music, strange music. A faint tension moved through the room, because now, the story had moved far beyond a simple crime. This was something organized, something concealed. What exactly, no one yet understood. Salahuddin's gaze sharpened, because now he was no longer just listening. He was analyzing every detail, every pause, every shift in her voice. What did they want from you? He asked. The question hung in the air. The woman looked down. For a moment, she said nothing. Then slowly, she replied, I don't know. That answer created more questions than it solved. But before anyone could speak, she added something else, something that changed everything. They said, I was chosen. A ripple passed through the room. No one spoke, because the weight of that word was heavy. Salahuddin stepped slightly closer, not aggressively, but with focus. A chosen. For what? He asked. The woman closed her eyes briefly, as if the memory itself frightened her. Then she opened them. But something had changed. The fear in her expression softened, replaced by something else, something unfamiliar. They said. She whispered, but for something sacred. Silence, deep, unsettling silence. Because now, this was no longer just an abduction. This was something planned. Something ritualistic. And something dangerous. But what happened next made the situation even more unsettling. Her voice changed. It became calmer, almost distant, as if she was not just remembering, but reliving. They were not harming me, she said slowly. They said I was honored. Some of the men frowned. Others looked uneasy, because this did not match the behavior of kidnappers. It suggested something else entirely, something far more disturbing. One of the commanders leaned forward. "Oh, my Sultan, this could be manipulation. They may have influenced her mind." Salahuddin did not respond immediately, because he was thinking the same thing. But he needed certainty. He needed truth. And truth did not reveal itself easily. "Look at me," he said firmly. The woman raised her eyes, and for a brief moment there was clarity in them. Pure clarity. As if whatever influence held her had loosened. "Tell me exactly what you remember," Salahuddin said. His voice was calm, but there was strength behind it. Because now this was no longer just an inquiry. This was a test, and what she would say next would determine everything. The woman took a slow breath and began again. But what she was about to reveal would not only challenge their understanding of this incident, it would open a path towards something far darker. Something hidden beyond the desert. Something that would soon demand action. But in that moment, no one in that room yet realized how dangerous this truth would become. The chamber remained silent as the woman gathered herself. Every eye in the room was fixed on her. Salahuddin Ayyubi stood still, his presence steady, his mind sharper than ever. "Speak," he said quietly. This time her voice was clearer. I was taken inside a large place as she began. There were steps, many steps, and then a hall. She paused as if seeing it again. A white hall filled with light, and a strange scent in the air. The men listened without interruption. Because now her words were no longer scattered. They were forming a picture. There was something in front of me, she continued. A structure, like a face carved in stone. Large, unnatural. A few of the scholars exchanged uneasy looks, because this was not unfamiliar. Salahuddin remained still, but inside he recognized the direction this was going. "What else?" he asked. The woman swallowed, then continued. There were people dressed differently. Their skin was dark, and they spoke in a language I didn't understand. Now the room grew tense, because the connection was becoming clearer. Salahuddin had already been told about certain tribes known for secret gatherings deep in isolated regions, tribes who practiced rituals far removed from Islam. But hearing it now, from someone who had stood among them, was something else entirely. "Cesar, there was a man," she said, her voice lowered. He came forward. Slowly. "But what kind of man?" Salahuddin asked. He was older, dressed differently from the others. They all listened to him. A leader, a figure of authority, a priest. The realization spread silently across the room. "And what did he do?" Salahuddin asked. The woman hesitated, as if recalling something heavy. "He spoke to me," she said, in Arabic. That detail struck immediately, because it meant this was no isolated group. There was intention, planning, understanding. He told me I was chosen. Again that word, chosen. But now it carried more weight than before. Salahuddin stepped slightly closer. "But for what?" he asked. The woman's eyes lowered. "For their God." A deep silence followed, because now the truth had revealed itself. This was not just an abduction. This was a ritual system, something that had existed in the shadows unnoticed. But the most troubling part was still to come. What happened after that? Salahuddin asked. The woman's breathing slowed. "They gave me something," she said. "What?" he asked. "A scent from a flower." Her voice softened, as if the memory itself had a hold on her. "When I smelled it, everything changed." The men leaned forward, because now they understood. "It made me feel calm," she continued. "Safe, as if I belonged there." A few exchanged glances, because this was no ordinary scent. This was influence, control. "They spoke to me again," she said, "but this time I believed them." Her voice trembled slightly. They said I was blessed, chosen, honored. And in that moment, the final piece fell into place. Salahuddin understood. This was not just physical capture, this was psychological. A method. A way to break will and reshape belief. And if this could be done to one, it could be done to many. The danger was no longer small. It was expanding. Salahuddin turned slightly, his expression firm. "This cannot be ignored," he said, his voice carried. Because this was no longer about clearing his name that had already been done. This was something greater, a hidden threat within his land, something operating beyond law, beyond visibility. They are organized," he continued. They have leaders, they have methods," he paused briefly, "and they believe in what they are doing. That made them even more dangerous." One of the advisors stepped forward. "Am I Sultan? What do you command?" Salahuddin did not answer immediately, because he understood the gravity of what he was about to set in motion. This would not be a simple act. This would require precision, care, strength. "We will find this place," he said finally. The words were calm, but absolute, "and we will stop it." The room shifted, because now the direction was clear. This was no longer investigation, this was action. Salahuddin turned back to the woman. His voice softened slightly. "You are safe now," he said, because despite everything, she was still a victim, a survivor. But her story had done something far greater. It had uncovered a hidden world, a truth buried deep within the desert. And now, it could no longer remain hidden. Because Salahuddin Ayyubi had seen enough, and once he decided to act, he did not stop. If this story made you think, because history is not just about the past, sometimes it reveals truths we still need to understand today.